Hey, what's up, everybody? True Boxing here. Thank you for coming back to get hit with the truth. So today we're doing the what's next on former world title challenger, former interim champion Erickson Lubin, following his controversial 12-round decision victory over Jesus Ramos, as he won a WBA eliminator at 154 pounds on the Canelo versus Charlo Showtime pay-per-view undercard. Now, before we get into that, if you could smash the like button, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel, I really do appreciate any and all support that I can get as I continue to build my channel up here. Excuse me. So, back to Lubin and Ramos. You know, this was a very disappointing fight. And it's funny because I really believed that Ugas was going to beat Barrios, but I thought it was going to be kind of what Barrios did to Ugas. It was going to be that kind of fight. It wasn't a bad fight. I just felt like it was going to be a convincing fight. But it went the other way, and Barrios won a convincing fight. And then Canelo and Charlo, I felt like Canelo was going to smash on Charlo. So I felt like the most competitive fight of the night, the most intriguing fight of the night that was really a 50-50 coin flip for me, was Lubin and Ramos, and I picked Lubin to win. But man, I didn't like the way he won, and it's not to say that it wasn't close enough to call his way, because it was, but I thought Ramos did more, but I just didn't like the way the fight went. I didn't like that neither guy really went for it. You know, when you're at this level, you got to go for it. And so I was disappointed in both performances, but I don't know if Lubin did himself a disservice in this fight. And what I mean by that is, I really believe now, see, Lubin used to be a guy after Charlo knocked him out in the first round. He was that guy that, like, he was kind of semi-avoided because not a lot of the top tier guys would line up to fight him, because he's a southpaw, he can box, and he also had pop and power, but not a big name. So it was kind of like, okay, I don't have to fight this dude. But he worked himself up, got himself in position, got the Fundora fight, and looked great. But, you know, fight of the year last year, but got stopped. And Ramos was down to fight him. And I feel like Lubin's kind of backtracked, even though he won, because I feel like guys aren't going to be like, oh, I want to fight Lubin now. You know, I don't think that's going to be the case. So I think he's going to have to mandate his position. And now that he won a WBA eliminator, right now, I don't know if the WBA's updated it or not, but he's number 3 right now. So I don't know if it was a final eliminator or just to move up the IBF ranking, the WBA rankings. I know he's also number 3 in the IBF. So a lot of moving pieces. But now the big question is, what's next for Erickson Lubin? So let's run through the top 10 and see what possibly could be next. At 154 for Erickson Lubin, who is deciding on staying at 154, but he was contemplating moving up to 160, and I still think he should leave that door open just in case there's a better opportunity at 160 at some point. So that's just my opinion. But let's take a look at the possibilities and go from there. We start with the current unified champion, Jermell Charlo, which would be a rematch. Charlo has no reason to fight Lubin, even though he's coming off the loss to Canelo. He still holds 3 of 4 belts, and he already knocked out Lubin years ago in the first round. So, you know, Lubin really hasn't done anything to earn this rematch, and I don't think Charlo would give him the time of day. I don't see it. Tim Tszyu. I don't think, if Tim Tszyu beats Brian Mendoza, I don't think Tim Tszyu would be interested in a fight with Lubin. Maybe, you know, I wouldn't hold my breath. I don't think Tszyu would be afraid of Lubin by any means, but I just think there's other better options that Tszyu could probably take, you know, especially like Charlo to unify belts, or Crawford or Spence or somebody like that coming up to 154. So I just think Tim Tszyu, if he beats Brian Mendoza, he's just going to be in a position to where he can choose a bigger name option, and he wouldn't have to fight Lubin. So I'm not going to be surprised if he were to fight him, but I just don't think it happens. Brian Castano. Now, that's not a bad option for Lubin, but Castano would have to want that fight, and he hasn't fought in almost a year and a half since he was knocked out against Charlo in their rematch. So I don't think Castano would want to come back and fight a guy like Lubin next. So I'm going to say no. Brian Mendoza. Mendoza's fighting next against Zhu. You know, he's the underdog. He's actually fighting this Saturday against Zhu. He's the underdog going into that fight. If Mendoza doesn't like completely get blown out by Zhu, if he's actually competitive in the fight, I mean, I could see Mendoza saying, hey, I'll fight Lubin. I beat the guy you didn't beat. I knocked him out. I'll fight him. I could see that going down because I think Mendoza's kind of fuck it. I'll fight whoever. You know, I don't think he's afraid to fight anybody. So I could see that fight going down. Sebastian Fundora rematch. I don't know if Lubin wants it yet. I think, you know, he got a nice win after the loss to Fundora. He came back. He got a nice win over Luis Arias earlier this year, and now he kind of sneaks by with this win over Ramos. I don't think his confidence is fully there, and with Lubin coming off that knockout loss to Mendoza anyway, Fundora, I don't even know if Fundora would want the rematch. I don't see it. I don't see it next. Magomed Kurbanov. That's an interesting one. They're both in the WBA rankings, but Israel Magramov or whatever is the number one. So it really depends on what the WBA decides to do. If they're going to order a final eliminator between two guys, I mean, you know, with Kurbanov sitting there at number 2, I guess it's possible, but it just depends on what the WBA decides to do. So I guess that's possible. Michel Soro, French contender. He's fought for the WBA regular belt against Brian Castano before. Not a bad option right here for Erickson Lubin, especially if he's trying to mandate a WBA position. You know, if he's not the first mandatory. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility, but he would probably have to get Soro to come over to the United States to fight. So I'm going to lean towards the no, but you never know. Tony Harrison. I like the matchup. I just don't think Tony Harrison would be interested in fighting Lubin, but maybe he would. And then finally, Danny Garcia. I'm not seeing it. I mean, Danny's still supposed to be fighting Arizlan De Lara for the middleweight title at a catch weight of 155, but who the hell knows what's going on there. So Erickson Lubin again, and then a rematch with Jesus Ramos we can mention. You know, I don't know, a rematch. I don't think Lubin would be interested in that. It wasn't a great fight. I mean, in terms of points, controversy, I could see the two sides wanting a rematch, especially Ramos, but it was such an ugly fight. I think that would be Lubin's quote-unquote excuse to not give the rematch. So, and to be honest, I wouldn't blame him because these two guys really didn't step it up in the first fight. So, I'm leaning towards a no. So, I'm going to say no rematch with Ramos. So, overall, it's just really going to vary. I hope he gets a good, solid-ass opponent next. I like Lubin a lot. But I really, like I said, think he kind of did himself a disservice. But I also really wouldn't be surprised if he gets one of these PBC guys trying to make a move. Again, everything's going to revolve around what Jermell Charlo does next, who he decides to fight. You know, Charlo has been ordered to make his IBF mandatory defense, but is he going to honor that? Or is he going to move on and try to fight the winner of the potential rematch between Crawford and Spence, if that even happens? If it doesn't happen, will he welcome up Crawford to come fight him at 154 for the belts that he still has? That's all in question right now. And then it's up to the governing bodies to order something. So we'll see. We'll see what goes down. But that's it. That's what I got. That's my what's next on former world title challenger and former interim champion Erickson Lubin, following his controversial unanimous decision victory over Jesus Ramos on the Canelo and Charlo pay-per-view undercard. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, smash the like button, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel. I appreciate any and all support. This is True Boxing. You've been hit with the truth.